You could find us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube. Please remember to subscribe. You could find us at realmeneatplants.com. My guest today is an old dear friend, Chef AJ. AJ, welcome to the show.
Glenn, how are you?
I'm fine. So, is that the most colorful chef's coat you have?
It's the second most colorful, believe
Oh.
it or not. I had one made in honor of Dr. McDougall in the style of his shirts, and it's even more colorful, but it is kind of cool. It's got the bling, Chef AJ.
Yeah.
About this is that when it gets dirty, you don't notice.
That's it may be dirty right now.
It may be.
Now,
So,
what is that book you're holding? Is that a good new book you read?
well, it's a book that I'm hoping will be our swan. Well, I don't know if it'll be our swan song, but I'm hoping it will be for both of us our first New York Times bestseller. It's Sweet Indulgence. I believe this is our fourth collaboration together. And I always joke that I can write a book without Glen Merzer, but I can't finish one. And that's another case in point. So we have this beautiful book, and it's the first time that we really listened to our readers who insisted on a beautiful color photo for every recipe. And Hannah Kaminsky did a unique photo of all, I believe it's 154, 156 recipes. And it's got a hardcover, which is what they wanted. And it's got the glossy pages, and it's beautiful. And today I'm going to be making for your audience, and maybe mine if you share the video.
I'll share it.
Well, thank you. One of the newer recipes called Peanut Butter Paradise Parfait. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to be making, this isn't a trifle bowl, but I'm going to be making a smaller version that will to show how to plate it. And it's basically two recipes in the book in one. It's the peanut butter mousse, which I created when I lived in the desert because I was teaching a dairy-free and delicious class, and somebody couldn't eat chocolate, but I felt bad because we were making a rich, decadent chocolate mousse, which is in this recipe, and the chocolate crumbs. And the chocolate crumbs is actually our brownie recipe, but I found that if you don't process it all the way into a brownie is a raw brownie, you get these lovely little crumbs that you can sprinkle on fruit, you can sprinkle on ice cream, and in this case, on your parfait. And it's very, very easy to make. And so we're going to start with a food processor fitted with the S blade because it looks like the letter S. I'm using the Breville. It's my favorite because it's so powerful. It processes so quickly. I always tell everyone when you have cooking equipment questions or anything in life, get the biggest and best you can afford because you can always process a small recipe in a big machine, but not the other way around. The most important thing, regardless of which food processor you're using, and again, you want a food processor, not a blender. Blenders are great, high-powered blenders, but not for most of these dessert recipes. You want to make sure it's dry because if there's even a drop of water in here when you process the nuts, it's going to turn into a paste. So we're going to start with raw unsalted walnuts, and we're going to place them in the food processor. And we are just going to process this like into a crumb-like, breadcrumb-like, or flour-like consistency. We don't want to let the food processor keep running because then we'll have nut butter, which is fine if you want nut butter, but not for this recipe. That was about 5 seconds on the Breville. I love that the Breville kind of keeps time for you. So we have just like little crumbs, basically, no big deal. And then I'm going to add my cocoa powder or cacao powder or carob powder, whatever you choose, and vanilla powder. And we're going to place that into the food processor again. And we're going to process again. That was 2 seconds. And now we're going to add our pitted dates. I am using the Deglet Knorr because I find that they are the most cost effective if you're using a lot of dates. If you're using a date just to eat a date because dates are delicious, then I would probably eat the medjool or my favorite date, which is the Bari, B-H-A-R-I, which tastes like a Kraft caramel. But I find that the organic pitted medjool dates at Costco are the best prices I've ever seen, and they work great in all these recipes, especially this one because they tend to be a little drier than the medjool, which is good because I don't want it too sticky. So I'm going to hope that the bag that said pitted is really pitted, but sometimes you do find a pit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to process this. If we were making the brownie recipe, then we would want to process this. We had a little trouble when you and I were not trouble writing it, but we the vernacular, because since we're not teaching hands-on cooking, we were trying to explain that the people needed the break point, that needed to come together into like one contiguous kind of mass. That's if you're doing the brownie, but for the sprinkles from the chocolate crumbs, we just want to make it into crumbs.
If there were a pit in there, AJ, would it cause problems for the machine?
A pigeon?
A pit, not a pigeon. A
Oh,
pigeon wouldn't be vegan.
yeah, I think a pigeon would cause problems. So it wouldn't cause problems, but it could technically damage the blade. But what would happen is if there was a pit, it would stop and you would take it off. So that was 10 seconds. And this is perfect for crumbs. So if we were doing the brownie, I'd want to be able to smush it together and it would stick. It doesn't, which is exactly what I want. So now I'm going to take my crumbs and I am going to put them in another dish. And I will be back in just a moment because I need to either rinse or wipe out my food processor to make the peanut butter mousse.
Okay. AJ, when you got your beautiful new house, did you get it because it said Chef AJ's Kitchen?
Yeah, exactly. The realtor was amazing, you know,
Yeah. That was really a good selection.
I'm not going to rinse this because I feel
Okay.
like there's very few crumbs in this, but I just don't want it to, the chocolate to get into the peanut butter mousse, even though it probably wouldn't be a problem. There we go. So now I'm going to come back to the food processor and make the peanut butter mousse. And like all the recipes in my book, I really try to keep them 7 ingredients or less, and that anybody with a reasonable amount of culinary skill could make. I try not to be a chefy chef. I try to make it really, really easy. And as a matter of fact, I really try to make sure that all the ingredients can at least be found in a person's local grocery store. I mean, I can't vouch for everywhere in the world or the United States, but our local grocery store is called Rayleigh's, and everything except for the date syrup was available there, but the date syrup was available at Walmart. And actually, many of these ingredients are available at Walmart if that's where you like to shop. So what I'm going to do to make the peanut butter mousse, I'm going to start with a box of aseptic tofu. This is Mori New. This is different than the water packed tofu that people use for stir fries. For desserts, you really need the silken tofu in the box that's shelf stable, although some stores do choose to refrigerate it, because this is what's going to give it that creamy mouthfeel as if you were using, you know, eggs and butter and cream. I prefer the extra firm, but if all you can find is the soft, it will still work. But again, silken, not water packed. And you can get this online as well. So we're just going to place this in the food processor with some non-dairy cream cheese. Now, before Miyoko's was available commercially, I would just make my own. Miyoko Schinner has a book called Artisan Vegan Cheese, where all you really do is soak cashews overnight pretty much, and you can make your own cream cheese. But now that they sell it at the store, I use this and I get the one that has no oil. It does have the tiniest bit of salt, but it is basically just cashews. We're just going to put that in. It tastes like real cream cheese.
So that's the whole container, right?
Whole container, so it's 1 cup. Yeah. So this is one of the recipes that is more rich and more decadent. It's not one of the low-fat recipes. We have many of those in the book. I would say the majority of the recipes are low-calorie density, low-fat, but this is a more special occasion dessert, and I'm making it because we're going to our monthly potluck tomorrow, and people love it.
And I will note that we label each book, I mean, each recipe according to whether it's decadent or low fat.
Yeah,
or
there's
moderate
three.
fat.
So remember, it's decadent, medium fat, or low fat. It's
Right.
superbly sweet, mildly sweet, or you look in the book, but it's a really great. Janine Elder, our book designer, did an amazing job. And then I'm going to add my peanut butter, and I just make my peanut butter myself. And I'll tell you why. I don't know if you can see going in how creamy this is, because when you make it yourself, it just always stays nice and soft and it tastes better. I make it in a machine called a Nutrimilk, but you could make peanut butter in a regular food processor, probably like this as well. I find that the commercial brands are not only much more expensive, but they also tend to have that really thick layer of oil on top, which you can pour out, but then you can never blend your peanut butter. So my advice is if you don't want to make your own peanut butter or nut butters, at least go to a store, and there's many of them now, where they have that little machine where it's just peanuts and you do it that way, because at least you'll get a smooth product. I forgot my little spatula. Okay, so now my sweetener, which is date syrup, and I'll talk a little bit about date sweetener. And you helped me write all the parts of the book where we talked about why we use the ingredients we use and the benefit of dates. And of course, we have that wonderful introduction by a childhood pediatric obesity specialist at USC, Dr. Michael Gorin, endorsing this book, even though we do use dates because they're really different than sugar. So I haven't eaten any processed sugar since Sunday, July 6, 2003. So no honey, maple syrup. Honey's not vegan, of course. Maple syrup, agave, stevia, barley malt, molasses, coconut nectar, all that stuff. I've only used dates. And back in the day, in our first book that we wrote in 2010, we had a recipe for date syrup in our first version of unprocessed, which you could make, but it's so labor intensive. It takes like an hour. You got to boil the dates and then, reduce them and blend them. When now you just go to your local Walmart or Amazon and get organic date syrup. So that's what I'm using. And then the vanilla powder, which I didn't put in, but I don't want to leave the kitchen to go over and get it right now. Well, should I get it? I won't get it. But if you can use the vanilla powder, we love vanilla bean powder, pure vanilla bean powder, not regular white dextrose-ridden processed vanilla powder. It just bumps up the intensity of your desserts, but it's okay if I don't put it in because I'm going to actually make this twice for the potluck, so it'll even out. So I'm now just going to process this into a smooth puree.
You're having a potluck, AJ?
What'd you say?
You're having a potluck?
I'm not having it. My meetup group is Healthy Living in Lincoln. If anybody's in the Placer County or Sacramento County area, because my house really isn't big enough. So we have this wonderful member who opens up her house. So I just like to make sure it's all pureed. It's nice and smooth. I would say this is probably Charles's favorite dessert in the book. And you can see how easy and quick it was to make. So now let me show you how you plate it up. There are several options. Getting all the rest of my stuff here. So for the potluck, I'm going to make it in a trifle bowl. And so what I like to do is put some crumbs, some mousse, some bananas, and repeat my layers and end with chopped peanuts. Well, I'm not going to do that right now because the truth is the potluck is tomorrow. So I'd rather wait and let this chill a little bit. It will get a little firmer as it cools. But I'm going to plate a single one because our cameraman would like to taste this. And so you can also make these in individual glasses. And so I would recommend, these are actually kind of big for one serving, but these are the prettiest glasses I could find. And you can get pretty glasses at the dollar store or at the 99-cent store. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to plate a single serving right now. Now, my husband, Charles, he doesn't eat chocolate. So instead of the chocolate crumbs, we're going to use the other recipe in the book, which are what I call them vanilla crumbs, or in the book, they're called streusel crumbs. I actually like these better. So if they want the recipe for this, get the book. I love this streusel recipe. I use this on so many things from our pies to just fresh fruit. So what we're going to do is I'll use this glass. And I keep these crumbs in my freezer at all time for emergencies, meaning emergencies. I want something that's dessert, that's not just a piece of fruit. And you can sprinkle these crumbs like on an apple or a pear, microwave it, and it's like delicious. So I've got some crumbs on the bottom. And then I'm going to take some of my mousse, which right now, like I said, this gets much thicker after it chills, but we're plating it, before. So we'll give them a nice layer there. And then let's get the banana right here. So for this recipe, because it's so rich and decadent and sweet, I don't worry. This banana actually is ripe, but I don't worry if my bananas aren't ripe when I make this particular recipe because of the fact that it already is so sweet. And I actually prefer them when they're a little less ripe because they're a little bit greener, they tend to be a little bit thicker. So I have this really cool tool, and you might want to lower the camera just to show. I'm just going to put the bananas in.
What do you call that tool?
I got it at Big Bear at one of those like stores where you buy really cool stuff. I don't know what it's called. I'm sure that people could find it on Amazon. It works on bananas and strawberries, and it's really, really cool. And it's just, peanut butter and banana. I really should have called this the Elvis, huh? And, if people do eat chocolate, they could still rotate the crumbs and do like one layer of the vanilla streusel crumbs and one layer of the chocolate crumbs too. Nothing wrong with that. But I don't know, this is just so yummy. I just don't know why. And now we're going to take a little bit more mousse.
You know, I never had mousse until a few years ago. I had assumed it wasn't vegan.
Well, it usually isn't. It's usually made with egg yolks
Mhm.
and cream and all that kind of stuff. So let's just push this down. Let's get some more bananas. Always good to, even if a dessert is rich like this, it's still always a great idea to add fruit to it. There we go. And then a few more crumbs. Nobody has ever complained about this dessert. And when I don't bring it to the potlucks and bring something else like a quinoa salad, they get a little bit mad. And so if you want, you can just, I have a little bit of crushed peanuts here just for the top. This way, somebody that has a nut allergy will see this and like, uh-oh, better not eat this. But this is just amazing. You want to eat this now, Charles? I think you probably wait. This is just amazingly delicious. And I promise you will love it. And just like almost all the recipes in our new book, Sweet Indulgence, with maybe a couple of exceptions, they're that easy to make using the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit.
Well, that was beautiful, AJ.
Thank
And
you.
it didn't take very long at all.
Nothing to, no, I mean, obviously a cake is going to take baking time. You know, we can't
Right.
really, those are harder to do in real time, but even then they're not that difficult. So
Right.
let's hold our newest baby. This is our fourth child. Neither of us had real children. We had uh, book children.
Well, you know, when I met you, AJ, you were not an author. You were not a weight loss expert. You were not a podcast host. I think you were a pastry chef, right?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, we actually started this book like in 2011, I think it was. And we even had some preliminary photos taken. And then the whole world got turned upside down because I ended up accidentally, well, not accidentally, but I lost like over 50 pounds. And it's like, how can I write a dessert book? You know, I can't even eat these desserts. And the truth
Right.
is, I can't. I not that I can't. I choose not to eat the rich ones. I'll take a bite here and there. But so many in these books I can eat, you know, and I did
Right.
eat to lose the weight.
Right. So let's go quickly over the books we wrote, and then we'll get back to Sweet Indulgence. This was your first book, Unprocessed.
Right.
And 10 years later, we came out with the 10-year anniversary edition of Unprocessed with some new recipes
And
and
photos, but we could only afford 10 color photos. And now we have a photo for every recipe.
right. And after you lost the weight, you became a weight loss coach and expert. And we came out with the Secrets to Ultimate Weight
Right.
Loss, which was a bestseller for a while.
It was for a while. Yeah.
And then I wrote the manuscript to Own Your Health, and you contributed 75 recipes.
Yep.
I'm very proud of all of these books, but now we have the most beautiful book that we've come up with yet. It's really your book with just a tiny bit of help from me. And it is, I think, the most beautiful dessert book I've ever seen. I mean, a
So
lot of that credit goes to Hannah Kaminsky, who
oh
took
my
the
gosh,
photo.
it all goes to Hannah and Janine for her design because the two together were just
Yes.
an incredible team. And I will tell you that Rip Esselstyn interviewed me and he paid me a compliment, but it's really a compliment to you because I don't know if you remember, he endorsed our first book Unprocessed in 2011. And he said, well, not the problem. He said, you know, your book would, because he had several New York Times bestseller. I think they were even #1. He said, you don't tell any stories with your recipes. And so I took that note and you and I, our writing sessions, that was the funnest part is I called it the preamble. Like it's not a constitution, but the words that go over the title before the recipe, you know, when we came up with those, you know, that was like a joint team effort. And we had so much fun laughing, especially about George Washington.
People will have to read the book to look for the George Washington reference.
Yes.
Um, did you ever imagine, since you were overweight for much of your life,
Most
that one,
52 out of 65 years. That's like
yeah,
20%, I think.
that one day you would be, you know, a podcast host, a leader in the vegan movement, a weight loss coach, a weight loss expert. How did that transition happen for you?
It just did. I mean, I don't know if you know, growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but instead I became a vegetarian. So I mean, my real dream is I love doing the cooking more than any of the other things you mentioned. So I would love to have some kind of a cooking show, which I kind of do on my YouTube channel. But that's my favorite thing, is to teach the people how to cook, especially in person. Since the pandemic, that changed. Before the pandemic, I was teaching at many different culinary schools, both hands-on and demonstrational cooking. I still teach hands-on at Rancho La Puerta. But recently I had a bunch of medical students come to my home because I live near UC Davis Medical School, and I did a hands-on cooking class. And that's really my favorite, even more than just demonstrating, when I can be with the people as they're learning how to cook.
Well, we're aiming for a New York Times bestseller.
But in order to get that, you've got to pre-order, or at least order within the first 5 days. And that's why I say, if you're not going to order it, that's okay. But if you are, please order it before midnight on Saturday, August 31st, 2024, because after that, your order counts, but it doesn't count for New York Times bestseller.
Now, is there anything we can say now about a bonus for those who ordered the book?
Yes, they'll get an amazing bonus if they save their receipt, regardless of where they buy it, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or a seat at the table, where Glenn will provide a link where you can actually get a signed copy. If you buy it before midnight on Saturday, August 31st, even if you bought it like months ago, we will send you, and we calculated it's worth over $1,000 of bonuses with all the various, I mean, it's probably over 20 hours, because there is going to be a recipe video for every single recipe in this book.
Wow.
And other extras. We're going to give them the audio files of unprocessed. We have a few classes I taught, like I did a master class, dessert pastry class. It's 18 hours that people paid $597 for several years ago. I did a class with Lissa Maris, my friend from Raw Food Romance, called Make It Raw, Make It Cook. That sold for $200. So it's a pretty sweet bonus, which is only available until the deadline.
So if you get the book by August 31st and send in your receipt.
We'll have that email address very soon by the time the podcast airs.
And I guess to know where to send it in, I could put that in the show notes too, where you can send it in. And if you're on AJ's mailing list, which you can get on by going to chefaj.com, AJ will send you all the information about how to get the bonus. So the bonus is worth like 300 copies of the book.
Yeah.
Or something like that. 30 copies of the book.
At least. Yeah.
So did you have in mind all these years that ultimately you will have a dessert cookbook that will be the culmination of all your recipes?
Really, I mean, when I was a pastry chef, I didn't want to write them down, because I always felt like somebody was watching me and they would have just taken my recipes and I wouldn't have a job. But because it's interesting, Glenn, because cooking and baking or dessert, I think, is a little bit different. Because with cooking, you can be improvisational, color outside the lines. And with baking, you can't, because it's a science. With raw desserts, some of these you can. But no, I mean, I never aspired to write a dessert cookbook, but I did enjoy being a pastry chef. I mean, I didn't enjoy all the decadence and stuff. But I mean, it was fun because as a pastry chef, I got my own kitchen. I didn't have to work with anyone, or take orders. And I didn't have the pressure of like an executive chef where somebody's waiting for their meal, like the desserts were already made. I just had to keep making them, so it was actually not really a stressful job. And I could come in whenever I wanted. So I'd come in like early evenings and work till late evening. And yeah, I don't know. There's something fun about making desserts for me. They're therapeutic, just the making. It's more to me like arts and crafts. And in general, most people, whether they're vegan or not, love desserts and appreciate them.
Right. And the premise of the book really is that, as you say in the book, people are not going to desserts. Everyone,
most people are, not long term anyway, maybe for their diet, or their program. But I don't know very many people that have committed to never ever eat another treat again the rest of their life.
Right. So most of us like to indulge from time to time, and the point is that when you have a dessert, it could be healthy. And so these are desserts made not sweetened with sugar, sweetened with whole fruits. Many of them involve grains like oats.
Mhm.
They involve fruit and all natural ingredients.
Right, and they're not all date sweetened, so a lot of them are just apple or banana. So yeah, pear, for example, so it's not just dates.
Right. So, AJ, let's hope we have that New York Times bestseller. You certainly deserve it. And I hope that all your fans and followers will make this their most beautiful coffee table book.
Well,
The
thank you,
pictures are so beautiful
and
that
yours
you could,
too. Tell your fans and followers. Now, if we make it, I don't think we know until the following, I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Robert Cheek always knows, but who's the first person you're going to call?
well, naturally, Robert Cheek.
Charles lives with me, so he's not going to be the first person I call. Maybe I'll call, I don't know. Maybe I'll just jump on line
Maybe
live.
the, maybe the publisher of the New York Times.
Yeah, or maybe our publisher, because this is
Yeah.
his last book. So
His
that would
last vegan book.
you know, this will be nice for Bob too. Like
Yeah.
he's been a long-term vegan for many, many years. So I think
Yeah.
like it too.
We're talking about a publishing company called, you ready for this? The Book Publishing Company.
One thing I want people to realize, Glenn, is when vegan books do good, it helps veganism. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not just about, oh yeah, Chef AJ wants to be a New York Times bestseller. When this happens for people like Carly Budrog and Dr. Will B and Robert Cheek, this elevates veganism to the publishers that maybe weren't considering publishing vegan books. And
Right.
so that's why it's always great if a book continues to sell the way Atomic Habits does. It's been like #1 forever, but the pre-sales really are the most important thing. And so that's why I say, if you're going to get it, please get it before August 31st. But of course, these will make a great gift any time of the year, at Christmas, things like that,
Yeah. I mean, if you work at a company where there are people you give Christmas gifts to every year, pick up 20 copies.
And you don't have to be vegan to enjoy these recipes. And that's what I think I was hoping not to, even though I'm almost 50 years vegan and proud of it, I was hoping to write a crossover book that people that aren't even interested in veganism would buy, because the desserts are, for all intents and purposes, kosher. They're all gluten-free. They're all, different people have different reasons they eat what they eat. They're dairy-free, they're oil-free, they're salt-free, they're of course refined sugar-free. I mean, some people think fruit is sugar. I don't, because fruit is a whole food with vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients, fiber, and water. So I'm hoping that, Barnes and Noble will not put me in a section where nobody can see it, so that people that are interested, and there's a whole big sugar-free movement in the world of people that aren't vegan, will realize that you don't have to dessert, or as Dr. Goldhammer would say, at least these won't kill you.
Yes. That was Dr. Goldhammer's blurb for us.
Yep, he said we should have called it desserts that won't kill you.
Yes.
They will thrill you, though. They will thrill you.
Yes. Well, AJ, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope that all my followers, which are a small percentage of all your followers, and all your followers will get the book. I hope folks out there, including your followers, would do me the favor of subscribing to this podcast. And let us hope that we have a New York Times bestseller.
You should show a couple of the pictures before we go away.
Show a couple pictures? Well,
I think so.
I'll show some of my favorites.
I'll show you my favorite too right now.
Okay.
I don't know why. This one is just, I love this photo. I just love this photo so much.
I love the pages. Whoops. The pages that have multiple photos on, like this one of the different ice creams.
And the one with the spoons.
And the one with the spoons is unbelievable.
I love this one too. And of course the cover is just mouth-watering. And we didn't tell the story of the cover. It's Dr. Neil Barnard from PCRM. This cupcake is what started it all. And that's why we put it on the cover for him.
Here's the creamy blueberry millet parfait. Whoops. Do you have the spoon photo?
I'll get it for you. But look, I will get it for you.
Now, again, the beauty of this book is...
Look at this one. This actually
yes, that's it. The spoon photo. That's a classic.
Executed, But, oh, by the way, the categories are really clever, thanks to Janine Elder. It's like spoon it, sip it, bake it, so you have it. Oh, we should talk about Luca. And when people say it's too hard, he took my dessert master class at the age of 7 and made the strawberry chocolate cheesecake, which is in the book. So if a 7-year-old can do it, so can you.
And I made one of the recipes, the
Yes, you did.
pumpkin raisin muffins.
Yes,
So
congratulations.
if I can do it,
That's right.
that's even more amazing than a 7-year-old.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you agreed with that.
Well, thanks so much, Glenn. And
Thanks,
good-
AJ. Great to see you.
Thanks so much.
Next time, I want you to wear the even more colorful chef's coat.
I will do that. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been the Glen Merzer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at the Glen Merzer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.